Hey, Rainmakers. Today I'm interviewing Dan the Real Estate Man, and he really gives some interesting insights into a niche real estate strategy that I really haven't heard talked about anywhere else. It's pretty interesting. As well as just some sound business advice and tips for how to start off with the six-figure side hustle and scale, and how to operate with integrity. So I really hope you love today's episode. Hey, Dan, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to get this opportunity to interview you. I have so many questions.
Well, thank you for having me, Sabrina. Appreciate it.
Of course. So on Facebook, we know you as Dan the Real Estate Man. You have
Yes.
a really prominent presence in Philly real estate. And are you specifically focused on multifamily housing?
Yes. Multifamily properties, and actually like a niche of multifamily housing where I convert properties into multifamily dwellings.
That's really interesting. So, how did you get into that?
How I got into the multifamily conversion process, it was kind of interesting. So I was in the multifamily space. I'd say I started investing right after the collapse in like 2009 or 10. So prior to real estate, I worked at SEPTA. So I was still a full time employee, and real estate was sort of like the side hustle. And at that time, there was a ton of multifamily commercial properties available. Banks were selling them cheaply because they were just trying to get them off their books. Around 2016 is when the market really changed. People really started to come back. Started to invest heavily into real estate, into that commercial space. So I had to find another way to purchase properties and get them at a really good value. And so I stumbled upon um, the zoning code of Philadelphia and realized that inside of the zoning code that they allow you to build multifamily properties by right, which means you don't have to go through the zoning process, you don't have to go through the variance process, is what the city allows you to do. And it really gave me a big advantage over my competition because I was able to buy multifamily properties before they were multifamily properties, and really gain all of that equity because I was turning them into their highest and best use. So that's kind of how I stumbled into them. And then the other thing is that Philly has a lot of large properties. They have a lot of old warehouses that play well into this niche.
So that is fascinating. I'm a geek. I love when I pick out little things within the codes and I'm able to kind of use it to my advantage. So I want to unpack a few things. So you started
Sure.
investing when the economy is crashing, which is counterintuitive to how people do it. And it's interesting because we're in a cycle right now where people kind of went through the same thing, where they're buying at the height of the market, and now we're cooling and they're kind of cooling as well. But you said you started when the economy was crashing and you had a full time job. And I think that's interesting because a lot of people would assume that if you want to be an investor, you should quit your job, but you didn't do it that way.
No, I spent years actually trying to discourage, not discourage so much, but have people think about that because there was a big push to tell people quit your job. If you have a job, you're a loser. I'm like, no, not so quickly. Right? I don't really think that. So jobs really play a big part, I believe, in helping to build your side businesses, especially investments. right? Banks love W-2 income. They love it. And then my overall philosophy is real estate isn't going anywhere. So why jump off the bridge when I could build something out? And that's what I did. I gave myself a 5 year window, so that I could make more money on the real estate side than I was, on my job. And then I exited my job, but I had a strong foundation, right? Versus quitting my job and having to scramble.
Right. Right. So yeah, I'm glad you said that, because yeah, they do make you feel, all this fire your boss, like, well, fire your boss before you're making any money. That's an interesting strategy. I guess it works for some people who are under the gun, but if you get yourself into a situation, so that is really interesting, because yeah, a lot of, I guess, social media and business, people trying to get you into their business, whatever that may be, that's not always the best practice, because if you have an emergency, you really don't have anything to fall back on, because you just went all in.
Yeah,
So that's
and I do think there's a time to go all in. I think honestly, I think for most people that's going to be a losing strategy, right? I get a lot of the phone calls, on the real estate side of people who have done that, and again, I'm not trying to make it's not all doom and gloom, but a lot of times people don't make it. They just generally have to go right back to working anyway, right? And then you face the biggest problem, which is financing, right? So your first like 2 years out, it's difficult to really get any financing if you don't have some sort of track record, right? You're not showing some sort of tax returns where you're making money. It's going to be really difficult. So, I think for most people, it makes sense to really build that foundation, build that runway. So if you do run into some hiccups, not if you do, you certainly will. That's what that's business in general, right? You're going to run into some hiccups, no matter what it is, and you want to be able to withstand those hiccups.
right. And it sounds like it actually helps you when you're starting, not hinders you, because when you are going to the bank, like you said, they're looking to see, will you be able to pay back this loan regardless of anything that you're trying to do. So that's really good to know. So you started buying properties in Philly, which I'm sure anyone who lives in or around Philly, like myself, is like, I wish I could go back to 2008 to 2012, when just you were probably getting these properties for like $10,000 and $15,000 for these giant monstrosities of houses that are like 3,000 square feet and up. And I love Philly architecture. Like, I really have a passion for the old Philly design. A lot of it is built in the early 1900s. But you're just getting these incredible deals. And then you said at some point you stumbled upon a zoning code that's allowing you to buy large single family houses at single family prices, and then you do a conversion and you don't have to go through the headache of getting a variance to the zoning board. How did you find that? Like, were you reading through it and thinking, I'm missing something? Were you looking for that something?
So I won't pretend like it all happened at one time, right? Yeah, I was I'm a very inquisitive person, so I always wondered, well, how do people turn these properties into triplexes? Because it had been done before. And so that's when I started reading up on the zoning code. Like, okay. And then I started recognizing a lot of the properties that I have previously purchased have those zoning codes. And then some of it was just trial and error, right? I go down to the city. I'm trying to get a rental license for 3 units, and they'll explain a lot of this stuff to you. Like, oh, That's how that works. And it's just sort of it built up over time. But once I pieced it all together, I was like, oh, this is powerful. Because like you said, it's when I'm purchasing properties, and they're not always single families. So sometimes I do a lot of mixed use, and I bought vacant churches, I bought vacant warehouses. Um, to the lay person, they can only sell it to you as what it is, right? They don't understand the zoning codes enough to understand what it could be, right? So if they're selling your property, like, they're going to base it on what other vacant old warehouses have sold for, right? And so you're able to buy it at even what they think is a fair price, but knowing, hey, I can create the highest and best use, right? And so you marry really good fundamentals, right? Buying a property at a really good price, and then having a niche strategy that creates maximum value. And I like that because I don't have to do as many deals as other investors, but I create the same amount of value and similar income.
That is a very interesting strategy. And you've been doing it for a long time. Obviously, you see how many competitors are coming in, because to buy a vacant, abandoned, dilapidated warehouse in Philadelphia now is you're starting at the seven figures. Like, I guess now they're like, oh, hold on. We see all these condos, and we see, all these hip factory apartments and old sewing warehouses and stuff like that, which is really cool. But so now you have a new set of competition, but you kind of carved that out, I would say, in before this was a fad in Philly.
Yeah. And then I generally operate on, so my projects, I'd say my sweet spot is probably like 5 to 10 unit buildings. So some of that competition, they need to buy larger buildings, right? So I'm buying smaller buildings. So in that space, I don't have a lot of competition, because a lot of investors operating in that space don't have the expertise to pull all the pieces all together. Because it's more than just understanding the zoning codes. It's about understanding how to underwrite the actual business model of it, and how to do the rehab, it's a fairly involved rehab, much more involved than if you were doing single family.
Right.
So it's if you haven't done those rehabs, that's a big leap. Not that people can't make it, but it takes a lot of experience in that space.
So what did you do to kind of get that experience? Did you go through any programs or certifications or anything that made you feel confident that you could take a warehouse and turn it into 5 or 10 rental units?
I did. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. And I'm proud to say I just got my doctorate.
And how much did that school tuition cost?
Oh my goodness! Honestly, I had one deal I lost over $100,000 on. So I tell people all the time: listen, you're going to pay one way or the other, right? You either pay through learning it on your own, which you can do, or you tap into other people. Now, the one thing I do a lot more of now that I wasn't doing as much when I first started is I network, I go to conferences. I see you do that a lot. You travel around. You go to mastermind, get around people that have more experience, right? And so had I been doing that, yes, I could have avoided some of these issues. I don't regret any of them because I learned a lot from them, right? But if I didn't have to go through them, that wouldn't have been such a bad thing either.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're going to pay one way or another. You can pay for someone else's knowledge, expertise, and experience, or you can pay to build your own. But sometimes that's costly, where someone could have been like, oh, like a friend of mine, they completely rehabbed a property and didn't know along the way you're supposed to have in Philly, they didn't used to be that big on L&I. You could kind of do what you want. And they built the whole thing. And then they went to get the license. And they're like, you didn't pull any permits. You didn't have any inspections. And then they came there like, you don't have any sprinklers. You have to take this all down. And that was a really expensive lesson. And all these people are like, we would have told you that for free. You wouldn't have even had to pay, but it would have been being in those rooms and having the right network of people to say, what are you doing? Like, this is not going to work out well for you. It's going to be very costly, both in time and money. And for some people, that might be the last deal. So when you had that 6-figure lesson, that's a really good thing. What kept you going after that? Because some people, that would have been that. Like, oh, this isn't for me.
So I think some people might have. I mean, for me, that's never really been a real option to, like, I'm just not a quitter. That doesn't even really come to me. But what it did was it made me realize that I had to step my game up. So I tell this story, like, what I was doing prior to that loss was good enough. So I was a one-man band, basically, right? I was finding my deals, I was GCing my deals, and I still had my tenants, and I was property manager. So I was all of these things, right? And that was okay when I was doing one deal at a time, and maybe, I had, less than 30 tenants or something like that. I was manageable. But there is a point at which that's no longer manageable. And so what I realized is, like, what got me to that level was not the skills necessary to get to the next level. In fact, I had to get rid of those skills, to teach them to other people to be like the Dan I was, basically, right? And so I had to delegate that. And so what I did after I took that loss, I stopped investing for like 6 months, and all I did was plan and strategize. Okay, how do I do this moving forward? So I knew stopping wasn't an option, but I knew I could not continue to do what I was doing, or I was going to continue to take those sorts of losses. And, that wasn't something I was interested in doing either. So so I took about 6 months, and I just strategized. I read everything I could about scaling, joined different groups. I read books, and I just put together a plan on moving forward, and I hired people, which is always scary because you're always concerned if you have enough money. But generally, you can't afford not to, right? Because otherwise, you're just keeping yourself small. It's really a mindset thing. I talk about that like a lot. Like, if you think you're going to do everything, you're going to keep yourself really small, and you may make more money on, say, one deal, but you're doing way more of the work, where I could do, say, 10 deals and do almost none of the work except for find the deal and find the money. And I may only have to find the deal and hire somebody to find the deal. So I think it just goes to working on your mindset, changing that. That was, for me, during this whole process, from being a blue collar worker to where I am now. Every elevation came with a mindset shift. Sometimes brought on by pain, sometimes just brought on by the fact that I understood that some things I was thinking was holding me back.
That's a really good point. For the viewers who are part of the Rainmaker Alliance, we believe in the 3 pillars of your net worth, are your mindset, your skill set, and your network. And you've a little bit touched on all of these 3 key things that have helped you grow and scale and overcome, some of the, I don't want to call them failures, but some of the downsides of real estate, and keep going. You're really able to tap into some people and learn some really interesting things, even as far as when you said you were going down to City Hall, and you were kind of building those relationships and kind of asking questions, whereas a lot of people will try to do business over the phone. and they're just trying to rush you to get you off the phone because there's 10 other people and 5 people in line. But if you're one of those people in line, and you're just asking questions, you'll get a little bit further. So those are all really interesting points that helped you to scale your business from, I know you're well past 6 figures, but like you said, you started as this is a side hustle, and we're kind of doing it along the way, learning along the way, doing it all yourself. And then you got to a point where you outsourced your job because your income. And then you got to a point where you outsourced yourself and hired all these people, which is actually the way that all the, some of the wiser real estate books and things are saying to do that. Don't quit your job. Don't go all in and hire a bunch of people, because you don't know what is a good person to hire, or you don't know when you're being scammed without having a little bit of knowledge. And you could be scammed for years.
Yes.
And really,
it's going to be hard to train them. It's going to be hard to train them if you've never done the job. You won't have the right expectations. And it's not that you have to know everything. You should understand, have a cursory understanding of how these different parts of your business operates. Like I'm not a real big accounting person, but I understand I have to have an understanding. So when somebody's explaining something to me, okay, well, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. I don't have to be them, but you should be able to sniff out if this is nonsense, or if this or if it makes sense, and you can have a reasonably intelligent conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely important, especially when you're operating in major competitive markets where there's a lot of bad actors running around on the real estate side, on the contracting side, on the finance side. There's people out to get you. And
absolutely, straight scammers.
Do you have any of those stories of what's going on out there? Not to scare people, but just because there's a lot of books, a lot of personality types will make you think that this is easy and everything will go smoothly. So sometimes, I encourage people to start a 6-figure side hustle, but also to have a really realistic view of what that looks like and what you could come across.
Yeah, so one thing I've tried to share throughout my whole process is when things go well and when things don't. And I'm not the word failure doesn't bother me, right? And I agree. I don't necessarily call it a failure, because I feel like failure is when you stop. Right. But yeah, something I've had projects that, losing money, you certainly wouldn't, you're not like, yeah. But yeah, I've had contractors that ran off with money. I've had, people that were going to partner with me that backed out and left me holding the bag. So one thing I tell people, and because I encourage people, as I'm sure that you do as well, is to network, right? But you cannot let go of your common sense, right? Just because you may look up to somebody or they may seem to be doing well, you need to verify things first, right? Don't be so green and so excited to work with people that you get rid of your common sense. You should still ask common sense questions. You should still have structures. Now, that's where I've seen people get scammed horribly, is people have a really good social media presence and they suck people in, right? And people don't know they're losing left and right. Like the person they get sucked into is losing money left and right. But by the time they get sucked in, it is too late, right? So make sure you don't just get rid of your common sense because somebody has a bunch of followers or they got a big presence. Ask questions, talk to people who have worked with them, especially if they want you to put up money. If they're asking you to put up money, you need to do your due diligence.
That's a very good point. very good, because there is an investor, and I wasn't aware of them, but they're from Philly, and they popped up on like a reality show. I don't even remember which one, but when they were talking about Philly real estate, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like, they're from Philly. I started looking into it, and I'm in the groups, and they're like, that scammer, he couldn't make $1 if someone gave him 10.
Yeah,
So,
and unfortunately, there are more of those than there should be, because some people are really good marketers. They present themselves, well. They know how to connect, but ultimately, just use the same common sense you would dealing with anything else, right? Even with me, with anybody, right? Trust but verify, as they say.
And I like the advice, talk to other people that they've done deals with, because if you're that great, then you'll have a laundry list of success stories of people who are, raving about you. And if you're hard pressed to find one person to say a good thing, there's also probably a reason for that too. Now you came up, I was in a networking group that met, and your name came up last week. They mentioned how you were going along doing deals, funding, and then I think you took like a course on raising capital, and that really changed the game for you.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that, since they were speaking very highly of you. So yeah, when you're in a market, every real estate market is very, very close knit. So even if you're an accountant, you'll know who's doing good in real estate. If you're in any industry, even correlated, you'll know who's doing good, because they'll have positive things to say. So even without soliciting, I already knew that you were very respected in this industry, because your name comes up a lot in conversations.
Thank you. Yeah. So like I said, I've always been very curious. So, going back to my days at SEPTA, I used to work for SEPTA. Once I decided I was going to get really serious, I was probably like a lot of people. I was on YouTube every moment I had like a break. I was on YouTube or I was reading books. Like that's like where my mind was at. And so I came across this concept of private lenders, and I had never even heard of that. I didn't know that ordinary people would lend you money. I always just assumed it was banks. Right. And so a lot of this goes to, your upbringing. I come from more like a lower income upbringing. So a lot of these strategies were just like, nobody was talking about private money. You'd be lucky if somebody lent you $20. You'd be asking back for the next day. Hey, what about the $20 I gave you 2 hours ago? So once I found out about this concept, I became fascinated. And then it was one individual that just turned up more and more on like YouTube. So again, going back to marketing well, and the guy's name is Alan Cowgill, if anybody ever is interested. But so I was following him, and I saw he was coming to right outside of Philadelphia. Instantly, I just bought the ticket. I was like, I've been following this dude for months. And I would have probably flew somewhere else, but it just so happened he was like right outside of Philadelphia. So went there, listened to what he had to say. It was great. And he offered a course. No problem. Bought the course. And then he did a event. It was down in Fort Lauderdale. Hopped on a plane. This is when I was still working. I took time off, hopped on a plane, went down, went through the whole course. I mean, it broke down the whole process to you. And before I get to the end of it, I just want to just make this, that this is really important. That's when it's so important. You got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in yourself. I'm not saying you got to buy everything in everybody's course, but if it's something you want, something that can be a game changer, you got to invest in yourself, right? I mean, that's a big part of growth, not just business, because it's not really about the money, it's about your growth. and because you're expanding your mind and what could be. But anyway, so I went down there. I took that course, learned, understood the rules, because ultimately I believe you have to like learn in front of where you want to be. So if you know you want to be here, you have to be like learn there. Because if you just wait till something happens, it's going to take a lot of time to catch up.
Right.
So after that course, it gave me the confidence to raise money. And I remember the first time I had spoke with some people about private lending. I was following, his whole spiel, and it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna maybe do it, and like back and forth for like a year, and so back and forth for a year, and then I remember it was January. January of like, I don't know, 2017, 18. Deal came up. He was like, he called me. He's like, okay, well, we're finally ready to go. And actually, at that time, I kind of like, this person made me like, yes. But called me, said, I'm ready to go. First deal, I think he gave me $250,000. Then the same month, turned around and gave me like another $300,000. Now, since then, I mean, just this one individual with their friends, because what happens is once you become good, once you give people back their money, I mean, they've invested, millions and millions of dollars at this point because he's bought his buddies and everything else. And that's just one person. And that's just from learning one thing. So, imagine if I'm like, this is $1,500. I'm not paying $1,500. I'm not paying $1,500 that you lose out on millions of dollars. Millions of dollars because you don't want to pay $1,500. And I guess it's different if you don't have it, you don't have it. But if you have it and you're not willing to invest in yourself, why should anybody else invest in millions in you? You don't think you're worth investing $1,500 or so that blew the doors open for me. Since then, I didn't need any hard money. Like 98% of my deals are privately funded. Every once in a while, I may have to go to a hard. It's been years since I've had a hard money loan. I just closed on the deal Friday, this previous Friday. It was a private loan. It was fully funded. I didn't have to bring $1 and left out of closing with like $40,000. Because it's a different way of doing deals, right? They're not like, oh, we're going to do draws. No, just fund the whole deal up front. It just makes your investing, you can do a lot more, put it like that, right? Because if that was hard money, I'd have to put down
and
like 15%.
You could be more flexible with the deal.
Yes. You got
because
points
hard money lenders have no vision.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to really build those relationships. So, that's what I found with hard money lenders. You really have to find ones who want to see you grow, who are invested. It's really a partnership, right? It's more than just transaction. That's one thing I would definitely recommend for anybody that's looking at hard money. Don't just look at it as just borrowing money. You want to build relationships. Like those lenders should be as interested in seeing you grow as they are in seeing their capital back, right? And if you're not getting that vibe, go somewhere else, because there will be people who are interested in your growth. But you have to be out there. You have to be networking. It's good to tie in with people that have those experiences, because maybe they could save you going to 10 hard money lenders. Like I said, go there. Talk to them. Absolutely. They will be the ones, and that's what we're talking
about. Because not all the hard money want to see you succeed, because sometimes they'll get the deal back. And I've heard those stories where they're not really rooting for you. Yeah. But I do, just because we did bring it up and it's very, very enticing. I also want you to talk about how you knew you were ready to take on other people's money. I know you were studying it and you were aware it was a concept, but some people will think on their first deal, they should have their grandmom empty out her 401k so they could do a deal. Can you just speak a little bit about like when you should start taking on outside funds? because we all want
Yeah.
everyone to win.
That's a really good point. Because again, when things become popular, sometimes people push it and you don't give it any sort of context. So you see somebody doing their first deal, asking to borrow money. It's kind of like, you may want to work the kinks out in your game first, right? It's one thing to lose money or not to be able to pay back your local hard money lender. They are built for that. Like that's their business. They understand the risk and all that, right? They may even find a way to make money out of it. But like you said, your grandmother's money that she's been working for, parents' money. I don't know if that's the wisest course right off the bat. I think you should have a comfort level with actually executing whatever your strategy is, right? If it's the burst strategy, if it's some other strategy, you should have the confidence that, hey, I can actually do this, right? Because if you've never done it, no amount of courses are going to really it's not the same as dealing with in real life. So you get the theory part of it, right? It's like going to college or school or whatever trade school, and it's like and you're learning in the sterile classroom, and then it's going out into the real world and getting punched in the face a little bit and bruised up. It's going to be a little bit different. So
entirely different.
Yeah, it's entirely different, right? The some of the pushback I think I get is that, like, when I say these things, it's not sexy. It's not like go out there and borrow everybody's money and get 10 properties in a year. It's like what is the rush? You've been poor for 30 years. Give us so 1 or 2 more years they gonna kill you. Give yourself some time, because the idea is you want to build a lasting legacy, right? I can get it. Some people are going to move a little bit faster. All right. So now, when did I know? I knew when I had some of my own capital and I had assets. So I know, okay, worst case, if I mess this up, I'll sell one of my properties and pay them back. Now, this part of it is big. I cannot understate this. You have to have real integrity. I'm talking about like real integrity. So because most my private investors, they're trusting in me, not even so much the product. Like, they know I have the skills to get it done, but they know end of the day, if there's a bad deal, Dan Harvey's going to pay me back. Whether it's this year, 2 years, 3 years later, I'm going to be made whole. And because I said you're going to be made whole, right? Once you have that level of trust, and that comes from real integrity. It's hard to fake that unless you're like a true con person. But but you do have some of those. But that's when I knew it. When I had some capital, I had some assets, I felt comfortable that, okay, worst case, I know I can make this person whole. But that's still the way I operate to this day. I look people in the eye. I let them know they have a comfort level of no matter what, because like we talked about earlier, things don't always go perfectly, right? Projects go over. You have issues with contractors. COVID happens. Like you can't account for COVID, Right. Stuff happens, and so they need to be able to know that you're the individual that no matter what is going to see this through. And then vice versa, you have to pick people who want to see you win. You don't want like a vamp, somebody's going to be on your neck, right? Yeah. Which is why I never went after small money. Like, I'm not interested, and I don't want to sound popular, but I'm not really interested in your $10,000. It's going to be you're going to be asking me about it in 3 months, right? I need somebody that has real capital that they can put out there and let it earn a decent return.
That was a very powerful thing you said about integrity. And I think that's probably the foundation of good business, is operating with integrity, because that's one thing that will always catch up with you. And it takes so long to rebuild your relationship, because once you operate without integrity, or you burn someone or it goes south and you're like, oh, well, you knew what you signed up for and you skirt off. That gets around, and, you know, nobody's going to want to do business with you if you've ever operated without integrity. So it takes so long to build a strong reputation, and it takes like seconds to destroy that.
Yes.
So I really like that you said that, and I also really like the very simple to follow metric for when you are able to take on money, which is when you can pay that person back in full. You should not be learning and experimenting in this business on other people's dime if you can't pay them back, and, you know, they've just lost their life savings, and you're like, oh, well, you know, that's business for you.
Yeah. That's definitely not it's not a good look. And ultimately that catches up with you. You very rarely see people who operate like that last a long time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you go through tough times, people will generally will be open to working with you as long as they know you operated with integrity. Right. Because most of these folks, all the folks I deal with, they're generally some sort of business person, you know, somebody that understands, listen, life happens. Right. As long as you're straight up. This is the point I wanted to make. What I've noticed, and it doesn't have to do with money, but this is what I noticed about a lot of people. They hate to tell you bad news, right? They will do anything to just not tell you something's not right. Now you already know something's not right. They just don't want to come out and tell you. I found that with a lot of times with contractors, they don't want to tell you that they got in over their head and they'll just ignore you as if you don't exist. And that's, if you have that tendency, you need to get rid of that. You need to learn to just face hard conversations head on. The easy way to do it is just to do it. Don't beat around the bush. Don't listen. Call them, tell them what's going on, because you will cause more problems by acting as if people don't exist. Even with tenants, I get that. We're trying to reach out and help them, and they are pretending that they don't have a landlord. It's like, yo, I mean, do you think that we're not going to evict you? Like,
you think we don't know where you live?
Gotta know where you live.
Yeah, but that is a really good point. Also, if you want to be in business, if you want to be the boss, if you want to fire your boss, you have to have those big boy and big girl conversations, and they're not always comfortable. And sometimes you're going to get yelled at, you know, and that's part of it. But that is, you know, that's part of it. You have to be prepared. You know, not everything goes well, but yeah, you can't pretend like problems don't exist and that people will go away. They might go away, but they'll never forget what you did, and that will contribute to your reputation. So they might not even say anything. Like, there's certain people, I don't ask for my money back, but I mean, that's cemented in my mind. And I've had people come back around like years later, like, I know I owed you this money and you didn't ask for it, but here it is back. And that's probably the best feeling, is when someone rights a wrong.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't say anything. I would just never do business with you again. Like, okay.
Yeah. And those people are few and far between that I've noticed.
I've had that. I actually, when my first attempted real estate deal, I was in college and I really didn't know anything. I had gone through a few $500 real estate courses. And back in the day, it was like $500 course, then $50,000 program. And they'd be like, go get your friends and family to loan you the money. And I'd be in the hallway like, you don't understand. You need to empty out your 401k and loan me this money so I could go to this program. And it's just funny because I think about how ridiculous I sound, but I was so serious. I'm like, I should be a millionaire and you need to loan me this money. But so I put a deposit down, like all the money I had, to secure a seller finance deal. And they sold the property to someone else and they did not give me my money back. And that was like all the money I had. So obviously I wasn't ready to be in real estate if scraping together half of a deposit to put down. And it really put me into some dark times. And I mean, I bounced back, going through lessons and learning, like, don't do that again. Don't do a deal if you don't have all the money. And I saw them at an event one time. They were actually speaking at the event. And I'm just like, wow, I wonder if everyone knows what a fraud he is. And he saw me in the audience, or we were talking, and he said, you look familiar. And I kind of, alluded to what happened. And he was like, oh my goodness. And he took me to the ATM, and he was like, they'll only let me take out $400. And then he mailed the check for like the other $1,100.
Oh, nice.
And that was integrity. I mean, it was like 10 years later, and I didn't need the money at that point, but
yeah. I need some interest on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just happy to have it back. But it's moves like those where people are like, you know what, I really did wrong then, and I didn't handle it right. I should have been honest. I should have, I was in the process of going bankrupt, and I didn't want to answer the phone at all. So he went into what you said, where people just won't answer the phone. They think people will go away. And, I did. I wasn't like harassing, but I know everyone who owes me money.
You got it up here.
I got it up here, right? Well, yeah, those were some really good lessons, not just in real estate, not just in funding, but also just some good, really general business practices for conducting yourself with integrity, and building a strong reputation. So I'm really pleased with a lot of the gems that you gave to us that are counterintuitive to what you'll see other people saying. It's not, like you said, the sexy fad, go all in, fire your boss, have everyone max out their credit cards, all those things. But this is how you build wealth, and it's not built overnight. You don't wake up with 25 properties, usually.
No, not generally.
That I've heard of.
And you don't, and if you do, you don't generally keep them. That's the other thing. You can do a lot of things quickly, but you'll probably lose it, or there is a potential of losing it just as quickly because it's built on sand. It's built on, it's not built on a strong structure. And like I said, I mean, for me, I have a long-term goal, vision for my business and for real estate. I hope to be on somebody's podcast at 65. Oh yeah. Back in my day, I used to burn. I don't know why I would sound like that at 65, but it could happen.
That's so funny, but yeah, I mean, it's all a learning experience. And it's really important to learn from people who have come before you and who have done it successfully and who have built a really strong foundation, and not taking what you see for granted. Like, oh, they have all this stuff. Let me follow them. You want to find a network and an alliance who operates with integrity, has done their due diligence, done the research, done some deals. And don't be afraid to take your time. Like you said, you've been poor for 30 years, if you take 2 years to learn.
Yeah, that ain't going to kill you.
Right. It's not going to kill you. It'll just stay off Instagram for a little bit, and then you'll survive. Basically.
Yes, you will. And thrive at that.
Okay, with that, we're going to get into the Rainmaker round. I'm going to ask you a few questions just to get to know you a little bit better. So first, what book are you reading right now?
It's a good question. I should be reading the book right now. I haven't been, but I think I'm trying to think. The last book I read was I think I may have it here. What is the name of the book? It's a book of, it's like a mindset book. Something about F with. I can't think of the name of it.
Okay, moving on. What book would you recommend to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps and build a portfolio that generates six figures a year?
Oh, there's a so I think the number one, the first book you have to read is a mindset book, right? So I mean, it's everybody's favorite is Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's another book I really like. It's called Think and Grow Rich. There's one is Think and Grow Rich: A Black Choice with Dennis Kimbrough, which is really good. And then a really good book that I read. I feel like it's like taking a college course. Is the value is the multifamily like value play, I think it's called, and it lays out line by line how you maximize the value of multifamily properties, how to purchase them, how to create value by raising rents and by lowering expenses, and how that actually all works. It's a very detailed book. It's excellent.
I think I have that one. I'm going to pick it up. What is your favorite quote?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, and probably just because you asked me, I can't think of a good one. But um, hmm, favorite quote. Hmm, kind of drawing a blank on that one. May have to circle back around.
Okay, fair enough. What's the hardest lesson you learned that you're the most grateful for?
That you got to continue to grow. I mean, you don't know everything, and that you have to delegate. Like delegating has always been, what it is. I'd say ultimately that encapsulate all of that is that I can't control everything, so I have to release some control, which is I think that's a lesson I learned. I have to relearn almost every day. It's by nature I am a control. I like to control things. And so in some situations that can be good, right? Because you get things done, but sometimes it can make you very rigid, it can make you very anxious, and it can keep you small because you're not letting enough people sort of do things, even though it may not be exactly how Dan Harvey would do things, but it gets done. And so that's probably one of the lessons.
Perfect. And how can the audience get more info from you, or how can they follow you? You're obviously very knowledgeable. So
Yeah, I'll start with the social media stuff. On Facebook, it's Dan the Real Estate Man. It's Dan the Real Estate Man. On Instagram, it's Dan the Real Estate Man One, because I lost the password to Dan the Real Estate Man. I always say that. I did. Yeah, so I
oh
just started one. Um, that's where I'm probably most active is on Instagram, showing my projects, walking through projects, talking about different things I have going on. And then I have a website, which is Dan the Real Estate Man .biz. On that website, it has a lot of my online products. I teach a course on multi family conversions, which is what we were talking about earlier. How I find, locate, analyze properties that could be converted into multifamily properties. And then lastly, I run a group called Brag, which is the Black Real Estate Alliance Group, which is a group I created about 5 years ago that's growing. And it is a community that's there to be sort of a foundation for Black investors, entrepreneurs, agents, so that we have a place where we can learn, where we can do business. And again, it's not anti anyone. It's just about seeing people that have not always had all the opportunities have a place where we can learn. Because sometimes I would go into rooms and wouldn't see anybody but but me. Just
right,
creating that environment.
absolutely. Yeah, and that is a really, really great group. I am part of
Thank
it.
you.
And there's a lot of good networking. There's a lot of good people and knowledgeable people. So, you can network online, you can network offline, and you should really be doing.
Oh, can I just give them that website too? That the website for Bragg is braginvestors.com.
Okay. And you do have in person meetups and seminars and classes too, as well, right?
In-person meetups. We do social events. We have some virtual events as well.
Great, great. Well, Rainmakers, I know you've gotten a lot of value out of this. Uh, Tremendous value, tremendous value. Dan, thank you so much for coming and sharing a lot of your wisdom and experiences and kind of giving a path what getting started looks like
Thank you,
with the
Sabrina. I
secret
was happy to be
strategy.
here. Thanks for having me again.
All right. And if you're part of the Rainmakers Alliance, make sure you check out our little bonus segment. We always ask a few additional questions and get some extra insight into being a really successful six-figure side hustler. Take care, everyone.